Good evening. This open meeting of the Northborough Community Preservation Committee is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on March 29, 2023. All members of the CPC are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The act allows the CPC to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded, so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to take a verbal roll call. Just give me a high sign if you're here. Based on what I see on my screen, Andy Dowd.
Present.
Leslie Harrison.
Here.
Jeff Leland.
Here.
Peter Martin.
Here.
John Campbell is me. I'm here. And we're joined by Lori Connors, Town Planner. Good evening,
Here.
Lori. Thanks all for coming. We're expecting a couple of members, but we'll let them come in as they arrive. Welcome back. Thanks everybody for making time to meet it. I know I kind of forgot until Monday that we had scheduled a meeting for today, but I'm glad we were able to scramble and get it going. I am going to, I want to start with a little meeting business at the beginning of the agenda. And that regards the chairmanship. So I have been doing this for 18 years. I get into it because we promoted the CPA, it passed, and our committee started, and I kind of became chairman. I am willing to continue as chairman, but I think that in the spirit of full transparency, we should renew the chairmanship every year, and I'd like to open that up. So I want to hear from members who are available now and any that come in. If any member believes they would like to be nominated for chairman, or if anyone has a nomination, I want to open the floor to that and open the floor to any discussion.
But John, are you suggesting that you would continue as chair through the main season of the CPC applications this year, or if
Yes, I am.
candidate-
I am willing to continue as chair for this year for sure, if the members agree. But I want to open it up to make sure there's not another member who feels their time is right. As I say, I think it's time we talk about it and make sure that it is still the wish of the committee.
I nominate John Campbell to be chair of the
Yeah,
CPC.
That was a chicken way out, Leslie, and you know it.
I'll happily second that nomination.
All right.
I move to close the nominations.
All right, you can only one motion at a time, I think. So
Well,
officially, Leslie made a motion, is that right?
was that a real motion, Leslie?
I guess it wasn't, it was a nomination. So I move that we nominate John for, I mean, should we wait until we have more representation here?
Well,
I
we
would-
could, but they're not here and we need to move the meeting along. So it is what it is. We are the quorum at this time.
Okay,
But-
I move that we nominate John for CPC chair.
I'll reiterate my second.
Andy, thank you.
So John, are you, I mean, that's why I asked the question. Are you looking for a decision at this meeting? Or are you just raising the issue of you wanting at some point in the near future, or maybe the distant future, to not be the chair? I mean, I didn't hear you saying you wanted a vote of the committee at this meeting.
You said three things just then,
Yeah,
and the last two I did not bring up. The first one is that I think that I think this committee, as many committees do, I think that we should renew the chairmanship each year, or at least renew interest in me being chair, as you have with your nomination. I appreciate it. but I just think it's time to bring it up. It's been a long time to be chair of one committee, and I really enjoy doing it, and I don't mind continuing. But it often is questioned in town whether a member is doing it for too long, whether members should turn over, whether there should be more of a rotation on committees and so on. So I like the committee. I like the people on it. I think we have worked hard the last few years. I hope they stay the same. Certain other boards bring forth a person to the committee, and those can rotate. But it's this year, apparently. Andy is representing housing again, which is great because we hadn't had a member for a long time. Leslie is representing historical again, which is great and excellent continuity. Sean represents recreation, and I assume that he is as well. Millie told me that she's continued from the planning board. So those things can rotate, but I'm glad to see that the assignments mostly stay the same. So I'm just really I'm really introducing the process to check into it and renew it each year, Peter. And if I wanted to resign, I would have started with that. There has been one new member that's joined. If the motion was made, if you wanted to remake it, Leslie, you may, but not necessary. I see Andy there. I don't know. I think he's muted.
I move that we nominate John Campbell as the chair for life. Just kidding. For a chair for.
Oh, no,
for the CPC.
no.
I will again second that.
Thank you. Does anyone have any other input with regard to the role of chairman and me doing it? Hearing none, I'll call for a roll call vote. Andy Dowd,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Peter.
Yes.
Andy Clark, are you there?
Yes, and yes.
Thanks, Andy. I'll vote for myself as well, because I already said that I would. So I'm stuck with it. Thank you for your support.
Thank you
I
for
very
your
much
willingness
appreciate
to
it.
do it and for doing a dynamite job.
So you're not all off the hook yet. Most every committee in town has a vice chair, someone to fill in when the chair can't do it. There are times that I can't. There are emergencies that come up. Sometimes a meeting needs to be continued. So I would like to put it out there that should there be a member willing to step up to be vice chair, or someone willing to nominate someone else, which, you know, that's between you if you do it. We have 6 of our members here. 3 are missing. We could wait till the next meeting if we want to try to get full membership as well. So discussion on that point. Any thoughts at all?
If you're willing to wait, I think we should wait.
I think that's fine.
And it should be an agended item for the next meeting. So we have noticed this is going to be discussed.
That's fair. So be it. We'll put it on the next meeting. Okay, then. Well, so given that I now have the power back as chair, I'm going to make a small executive decision to flip the agenda and put item 3 as item 1. I have a reason for that. Item 3 is consideration of minutes. It's now item 1. And I would like to review the minutes, starting with April 6th. So I read the minutes quickly today. I confess I don't often read them completely through because I pretty much remember what they are. But I found it to be both refreshing as a reminder of what we did in April and what we did in June, and a little depressing on some of the results that occurred. But it brought me to the point where I realized this committee spent a lot of intelligent time talking through how we would present our part in White Cliffs and our thoughts about it at the town meeting, and we did so. And then we spent the June meeting talking about the fact that the select board had voted to not go forward with the proposal that we had for White Cliffs and our feelings about that. And then unfortunately, some requests came up during that meeting, which weren't on the agenda. It was a little bit of surprise. We had a bit of a vigorous debate around it, and that led to some further offline debate, online debate, and discussions in person. So having said that, I wanted anybody else's comments on the minutes and any thoughts that come out of it, because it leads us to the second agenda item, which is going to stay in its place on the agenda. And it's the role of the CPC and role of CPA in the master plan.
John, my only
So-
comments on that was the second set was erroneously dated April 6th, where it should be June 13th. So
Yeah, I
Yes,
sent
Ms.
I sent it.
Michelle received that comment from a couple of folks, and she has since amended the minutes to reflect the proper date.
So if we vote to approve, we should say they're as amended.
Yep, thank you for catching that. I missed it because I thought I had printed out 2 copies of the same thing, but good job. You know what? I will discuss one kind of positive thing that came out of the meetings, some subsequent discussions and emails, and it had to do with the use of the admin funds. And for those who, I mean, I did write some emails about this, wrote an article about it. I spoke with Stuart Saganor, our guide from the Community Preservation Coalition, the head of that coalition since the beginning, really, of the CPA. And he had some good feedback. His words, I'm going to paraphrase quickly, was the admin funds should be used for the business of the committee only and should not really be subject to outside requests to use the funds for different things unless it was agreed that that was part of the business of the committee. And in that definition, our most recent approval of the use of admin funds, which was a year ago, June, where we had a request from the White Cliffs Committee to use funds to pay for the consultant who ultimately was the market consultant looking for partners who brought forth the requests, the proposals from the RFP that led to Metro West Collaborative presenting to Northborough and so on. And our view at the time, correct me if I'm wrong, but we felt like we were supporting the mission of the CPC in town and prepping really for what we thought might be a CPA application in support of White Cliffs. And that wasn't wrong. We anticipated that had the Metro West Collaborative proposal be approved, we would have been crafting a warrant article for this coming year's town meeting. But in the end, we really didn't have that before us. And so it was a stretch of how admin funds should be used. We don't have to reaccount for it. Really, there isn't an admin fund police, so to speak, but it clarified how those should be used. And so when the select board or any other committee comes forth and believes that the admin fund is sort of a slush fund or an extra source of revenue that can be used outside of town meeting, it's really not correct. So if any comments on that or people that want to contribute to that thought, it's a good way to define it going forward.
John, what do you think if we were to define the use of the admin fund more strictly, as you're suggesting, what would be the anticipated expenditures out of that fund on a yearly
Well,
basis? It's maybe impossible to answer that, but I'm
Oh yeah, I
suspecting
can. It's best to use examples, and we have a very good one in town. One is to use it for the payment of staff or people that contribute to the business of the committee. We do use the admin fund in Northborough each year to help pay for our staff assistants, like Michelle, who writes our minutes, and before that, it was, I apologize if I forget the woman's name. It was our previous secretary, but so we use it for that. And in some towns, they actually have a full-time position that's hired for because their use of CPA is much bigger than us. You know, somebody like Cambridge or whomever. I'm just throwing it out there. Another use that we've used before is for legal fees or appraisal fees with respect specifically to a property that's going to be part of a CPA article. You know, and other related administrative costs that are directly to the business of the community. I'm sorry, the CPC, excuse me, and the business of vetting an application that we had. So should we have had an application, or should we have an application specific to something in town? And it could be something related to White Cliffs as an example. And we believe we need outside help to get facts to make sure that that application applies or is fully supported, something like that, then I think those are appropriate uses of the admin fund.
In any event, it should be to support the operations of this committee and no other committee or body in the town, right?
Correct, as I understand it.
Sounds sensible.
And, you know, we were not the first town to have this conundrum. And Stuart felt like using that definition and sticking to it is a way to make sure it's clear to your town, your other towns' boards, and citizens in town for that matter. So I guess those are just my thoughts, kind of pulling together the you know, bringing us up to the current date from the meetings that we had and some of the outcomes that came from it. So quickly open the floor to anybody else that, first of all, if you have a comment on the minutes or any other comment, and otherwise we'll get to the business of approving the minutes. If somebody just wants to make a motion, they can do that as well.
I'll move approval of the 2 minutes presented to the committee at this meeting with the caveat that the second set be redated to the correct date.
I'll
Could
second
you
that.
please-
If
yeah,
you could just do me a favor and vote them individually. that would be-
sounds
I will
good.
move
And
approval
I
of the April
actually
6th,
was not at either
2023.
meeting, unfortunately, so I'm going to need to recuse myself.
So start
I
over with the
move-
motion.
I just moved approval of the April 6th, 2023 minutes as presented.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Peter. Any other further discussion on April 6 minutes? Hearing none, call for a quick roll call vote. Andy Dowd,
Yes.
skipping Leslie, wasn't here. Jeff,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Andy Clark,
Yes.
I was here, yes. And we are approved of April 6 minutes. June 13 minutes, again, we're making the edit to the printed minute. And are there any discussions before we make a motion on those minutes? Any corrections or anything?
I'll make a motion to accept the amended minutes.
For which date, Andy, just say it?
Say that date once again, because I spaced it out.
June
June
13?
June 13th. I move to accept the amended minutes from June 13th as
I'll second
presented.
that motion.
Motion by Andy, second by, was it Peter?
Yep.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, quick roll call vote on the June 13 minutes. Andy Dowd,
Yes.
skipping Leslie again. Jeff,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Andy Clark,
Yes.
and me. We are approved on those two. Thank you. Okay, so that completing my segue, we roll into a little discussion and any committee member input on what could we do to be proactive as a CPC in the master plan. Again, our charter and our original focus is taking applications that come to us, ideas that come to us, and seeing if they apply and moving them forward and ultimately recommending to town meeting. But there's also no reason why we can't be proactive and try to collaborate and help another committee craft an application. We sometimes do that with a board like the Recreation Commission, or usually it's done within that committee, say with our members' help, which would be Sean in this case, or it might be done in the Open Space Committee with the members' help, which is me in that case, or Leslie as well. But sometimes we've, tried to promote an idea, or at least, as I say, collaborate on one. Let me give you an example. At the last open space meeting, we talked about this a little bit. We thought about, just to give you a concrete example, as part of downtown revitalization, if we were to try to create something, we might need to make some space, acquire a property, something or other. There are some parcels in town that are, either unoccupied or might be a candidate to let us create a path or connection or part of a park or whatever. So the Open Space Committee might start the groundwork for, would a property owner be interested in selling that property? In this case, it would be for commitment to open space or recreation property, for instance. That's part of a bigger thing. And we do that in the Open Space Committee as a regular, hopefully yearly thing, where we put the word out that the town is interested in conserving property and creating more open space. And occasionally we get a landowner who wants to come forward, and we end up acquiring some property. So that was a concrete example of how something proactive could be done that checks off a box in the master plan and contributes to what is the current priority of the master plan, the downtown revitalization. Laura, you got your hand up, so. chip in.
Yes, I have a couple of things that I have been thinking about with this regard. So one of the things is that I anticipate that we will go forward. So the master plan implementation committee will choose to go forward with a phase 1 project. So it is likely, although the MPIC has not discussed this at this particular point, so I can't say for sure, but it is likely that within the phase 1 project, there will be an open space opportunity. So if you folks have been involved in any of the community outreach sessions, you know that there are a number of open space options that have been proposed by our consultant team. And some of the open space options are quite extensive, and others are more along the lines of pocket parks. So there's one location in particular, which is where the Lions have their sign. So there was discussion about enhancing that little pocket park. So that might be an opportunity. So of course, the next step is to identify a phase 1 project. Then I anticipate that we will go to the Board of Selectmen or Select Board and request design funds. We will hire a consulting engineer, and then they will engineer a project. So then, of course, we'll be seeking construction funds. So I think that that would be a good opportunity, not for the next town meeting, but the following town meeting, for the CPC to be involved with funding a portion of that project. So of course, I understand that you're limited in what you can fund, but the open space enhancement, the pocket park improvements, I think would be a fantastic opportunity for the CPC to get involved. And then another project, so on Monday night, I'm going to be making a pitch to the select board for ARPA funds. I'm going to be requesting $250,000 to fund a sign and facade program. So of course, ARPA funds need to be fully committed by December 31st of 2024. This would be a short-term project. Everything would have to be absolutely 100% complete by December 1st of 2026, just to make sure all the checks can get out the door before the funds expire. But I've been interested in having, well, we'll see how popular the program is. But I'd be interested in having the program go beyond this one round of funding. So I was talking with Norm Corbin, and he had suggested that this committee might be able to fund improvements to historic commercial buildings. So of course, historic buildings are anything that's 50 years or greater. So that would be an opportunity to hit you folks up for CPC funding to carry the program forward. So once again, it wouldn't be a ask for this year, unless of course we go to the Board of Selectmen and they decide that they don't want to fund the program. If that is the case, then I would scale back the project, and I may be very much interested in submitting the project to you folks to see if you'd be interested in funding. But of course, understanding the limitation is for historic buildings only.
Lori, to understand the idea a little more, did I hear you say the fronts of the buildings, or is it just various buildings?
So the priority would be fronts of buildings. So, or portions of buildings that are visible from the front. So if you have windows that are on the side of the building, but easily visible from the front, then that would be a fundable expense. So it covers a whole host of improvements, siding, painting, exterior only, window replacement, repairs to windows, door replacement, repairs to doors, ADA improvements. So if you have a step, then technically the storefront is not accessible to those who are handicapped. So it would pay for a ramp to make the property accessible. I'm not sure if that would be fundable under your program. Code repairs. So if there are code violations, building code violations, then those could be addressed. Lighting improvements. The program, as I envision it, would also include landscaping, but once again, I'm not confident that that's something that CPC would cover. So
Yeah,
that's why I'm more interested in the ARPA funds, because it would cover more of what would be necessary. So these would be permanent landscape improvements, like, for example, window boxes, street trees, and the like.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I was going to say we would need to check which items would qualify under historic. We have before you were on, we approved two different programs for ADA ramps. One at the Historic Society building and another at the First Parish Church. So, and that's a specific thing called out in CPA that you can do. And then obviously we had the window request from the Historic Society building. So, you know, I do think that applies if it's done correctly. So there's a lot that I think would qualify as restorations. I'm not sure a window box per se would, but you could add it to the window that you just restored, I guess.
Yeah,
There's
I
a bit of
would think
potential
that
there.
we would have to modify. So if we were seeking funding from you folks, so if you folks were funding the program instead of the ARPA, then we would definitely have to modify the types of projects that would be eligible. But one of the major goals that would receive priority is uncovering architectural features that have been covered by poor updates to buildings. So in 1970s, 80s in particular were bad eras for historic preservation. So this program would pay to uncover the historic features and, you know, fix them up and highlight them. So I'm excited about it. I hope that the select board chooses to endorse it. And if they do, then definitely be coming back to you folks in the future to talk about phase 2.
Now, this area, is that something that might move quickly enough for town meeting 24? Or you also think that's maybe a year or more out?
Well, it depends on what happens on Monday night. If, of course, they may just say that they don't want to make a decision on Monday night and they may kick the can to a future meeting. That's a strong possibility. If ultimately their decision is that they don't want to fund this program, then I absolutely plan on coming to you folks and asking you folks to fund the program. And that would be for the next town meeting.
Great. If that were the case, then I would ask that you, get with Leslie in particular and the Historic District Commission, because they would be the sponsor along with the planning department, I would think.
Good suggestion.
But that's great. Those are, this is what I'm after, these kinds of ideas that we can kind of bring forth that are a little easier to achieve than a couple of big things that we've tried in the last 2 years and didn't succeed at.
Yeah, Laura, it'd be good for you to come to, when you're ready, ask to be invited to one of our meetings.
Great.
Now you got my juices going about CPA categories, and affordable housing creation is a big one. And the question that just came in my head is whether the Housing Authority is looking again to create a project like we tried in town meeting 22. Or if there's been any talk about that you might know about, Andy?
We've had general discussions, about bringing a project back. No firm plans and no, immediate proposals coming. As you know, there's a new director at the Housing Authority, and he's got a lot of great ideas. And I think as we work through this coming year, we'll probably come up with something. I don't know if it would be anything, ready for the spring of 24 town meeting or not, but we just started meeting again after taking a summer break, so I'll keep that in mind for our next meeting in October and see what the committee has to say. But we definitely want to continue to push for more housing.
Yeah, we definitely learned from the last application, that even though the former director Lynn had spent so much time, it still wasn't enough, right? We didn't know what we didn't know until it was too late.
Exactly.
And all of a sudden, the expense of it was a whole lot higher. Now, that was disappointing, but it's a hard lesson learned, I guess. Lori? Yep.
Rick Leaf, and
You muted yourself, Lori.
sorry. So Rick Leaf, his Affordable Housing Trust, and Habitat for Humanity are going to submit an application for the next round of funding for creation of an unknown number of units on town-owned property located on Boundary Street. So they are actively working on putting together an application. They just found out this week that the town of Marlborough is not going to allow them to hook into sewer or water, which was a big disappointment. So that it will likely mean that they're going to have to decrease the number of units because of the cost of providing septic systems and well. We are actually going to be meeting next week, so I should learn more at that point. But we should definitely plan on an affordable housing application from them.
That's great. Good to hear. And they are beginning the renovations of the current building, right?
The check was just mailed out. It's still in the mail, apparently. So yeah, I believe that Habitat for Humanity is underway, working to address that unit.
That's great. And they were helpful in honoring my request to please put a sign up that, says what it is and that CPA had some role. So I haven't driven by to see it, but I'm told it's there. So that's awesome. Has this discussion spurred anybody else's thought on how we help move an application forward, or does anybody have knowledge of an application coming forward? Just trying to make notes.
I want to monopolize, but I do know we have been discussing White Cliffs and bringing forward an application. The Board of Selectmen did allocate ARPA funds to do the mold analysis, and that is outstanding. We expect that to be delivered soon, so we'll know more. Of course, I know that they want me to apply for the underutilized properties grant program, which that grant application is due in the spring. So I suspect that will include demolition of the additions, because obviously you don't want to remediate the mold if the cause of the mold is still in play. So there's the buttoning of the building that has to happen as part of the demolition of the additions. So I do anticipate that there would be some request for CPA funds for the White Cliffs, possibly for those specific purposes: mold remediation, demolition of additions, and buttoning up the building.
That's good news. So related to this, I emailed Stuart Saganor independently. He had said he'd like to come back to Northborough to be at a meeting. He had done that a long time ago. He's a very energetic guy, and very knowledgeable, of course, on CPA in Massachusetts. And if he agrees, I asked him to the next meeting, by the way, and don't know if his schedule would allow, but that would be great. But I also thought if he comes, that I would like him to address specifically the topic of allowable uses of CPA funds for historic restorations and specific to White Cliff, so that we know we get some guidance ahead as to which things we know we can direct CPA funds toward and which we can't. So hopefully to get a reply from him, but I think that'd be really helpful.
Great.
I don't think he replied. I think he just gets a lot of emails, but I'll follow up to him tomorrow. There's an extra person on our screen. Is that Sean Durkin? Are you there?
Sean's here. I called in. I'm in.
I see you. I made a note of it.
Hey,
You're on the record.
all right. Woo-hoo.
How are you?
Good. I came back, long commute from Burlington, Mass.
Yeah, it's a nasty traffic, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Uh,
Traffic is bad everywhere.
So speaking of you and the Rec Commission, do you know if the commission's putting forth any CPA apps this year?
Yeah, they're kicking around two different ones involving the middle school tennis courts and outside basketball court. I don't know if they're separating them or stretching them out for a couple of years, but Scott's definitely going to be looking into getting some numbers, so we'll have an idea what we're looking at.
Both of those are at Milliken?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
No, I don't think I mean, they're well aware of the financial limitations. So it may just include round one, replacing fencing on the tennis courts with the ultimate goal to maybe convert half to pickleball courts, upgrade the lighting, the existing lighting, and reconfiguring the basketball courts so you don't run under the baskets and into the fence at the tennis court. So those are they realize they're going to separate the projects because of the financial, and then they're also going to give us a priority on what they think is most important or most critical.
That's good. There's some precedent for that. We had a application we approved and the town voted for basketball courts at the elementary schools, if you guys recall.
Yeah.
You know, for renovations of them. And that was successful.
Yeah. So that's kind of the next area that we're looking at as Parks and Rec.
Very good, thank you.
Oh, one other consideration. I think the Women's Softball League has been utilizing the field, and there's some talk, but we're not sure if what we're going to do going forward to either create dugouts there with fencing. So that's being kicked around too.
Is that a rec league, Sean?
It's a rec league, yeah, and it's become pretty popular. More and more towns that the women are joining in. They haven't really had a league for a while, but it's pretty incredible, the enthusiasm, the number of participants.
That's ironic, right? The men's league was so popular there for a long time. And
I
now
know,
the women have
I
taken
know.
over it.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, the men's league was run for so many years by Aubrey Greenwald and then his son. So, I mean, Aubrey was as much a fixture as any building in town in terms of umpiring youth sports. It's quite a character.
It's funny.
It's good to see because that whole complex, again, through CPC, with starting with irrigation and of course the lights are still incredible. The head of the football tells me every time he clicks his phone and the lights go on, all the kids stop whatever they're doing and cheer. Yeah,
That's
he
awesome.
said no matter what, every single night when they do it. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Well, good. Those are the
So
ones.
that whole, that whole complex is becoming, very, very well utilized with more and more groups, which for Parks and Rec, we're always interested in involving. I mean, obviously we love kids using facilities, but we try to broaden the range in terms of different age groups and different activities. So
Good to
in
see,
that
huh?
regard, it's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good. Yeah, it's great when those projects are so visible over many years. So those are rewarding.
Yeah, it is. It's great.
All right. Any other input on that topic, which was CPA, master plan, downtown, and upcoming applications? It was a good discussion. Hearing none. We've checked off the top 3 items then. Essentially rolled 2 into 1. So we're pretty much done with the business that I had planned. Is there any different business that anyone would like to bring up? Again, I hear silence, so we'll move it on. So I want to talk about the meeting dates, and with regard to that, I want to bring up the subject of in-person meetings. I'm always proud that this committee almost always makes decisions by consensus, and so I want us to do the same. I won't be bashful. I really prefer in-person meetings for this committee. Our
Second.
our time calendar is short. We're really 6 meetings or so. I think when applicants come to talk, and when it happens in person, and also the interaction of committee members, just my experiences is just so much better. I recognize Zoom is convenient. In particular, Lori, I'm sympathetic to all the meetings that you have to do and travel at night, but I would really like to try to have our fall meetings anyway, October, November, December, January in person. But I don't want to push it through if it's just going to cause too much hardship. So please give me your feedback here verbally.
I agree with you that the in-person meetings are better. Some organizations try to divide up remote and in-person meetings by making sure that the meetings that they anticipate important votes will occur will be in person, and other meetings could be remote. And that may be one way to slice the pie there. But on the whole, I agree with you. To the extent we can do in-person meetings, I would be in favor of that.
That's a good point, Peter.
Sean here, I'm 100% in favor of in-person meetings, and especially if you can convince Stuart Saginaw to come to town, I would say that has to be in person.
Well, I kind of agree with you, Sean, but I was just about to say, to Peter's point, if his schedule was such that
I know.
he says, could I do it remote, then that would be a good reason to have another Zoom meeting.
Right.
So,
Oh yeah, I'd participate, but I just would love to meet the guy actually.
yeah, I think he's a good guy to meet, and he's very informative, helpful to the committee. So let me see what he says. Maybe maybe November is better for him, and so on. We'll go from there. Speaking of people that we have, we usually have Jason Little, the town accountant, come, and I was thinking November for him when he has more of his figures, and sometimes the state match has come in by then. So, Lori, if you see him or you want to suggest that's probably going to be my recommendation. And that would be, if we do first Thursday, that's November 2nd.
John, I'm in favor of the in-person as well, with the caveat that I could not make the first Thursday in October.
Fair enough.
Andy Clark, I would also much more, I would prefer the in-person meetings. I agree with everyone there that I think they are more dynamic, and they bring out a better discussion and a better consensus, which obviously is the goal of the committee. And I think, especially for ideas being presented and items like that, it's far trickier to get the impact, to ascertain everything in a Zoom presentation versus the in-person. But and I recognize that some people have medical conditions or something like that, then if there was some anxiety to it, maybe it's a dual option. But I also know that those don't always function as very well as they like. But my feedback, my input would be yes, at all possible.
I'm in the
John, I
minority.
also agree that meeting in person makes good sense. And just for the committee's knowledge, I think in the not too distant future, we'll hopefully have the ability to have a true hybrid meeting set up in the town hall building in a couple different rooms. That's in the works. So that would be a good thing to accommodate folks that couldn't be there in person. So more on that to come soon, we hope.
That's good news.
Yeah, I'm in the minority. I think the convenience and I actually think the presentations and things like that, I think it's more efficient online, in a Zoom session, but I acknowledge that I'm in the minority, and I'll go with the flow.
Well, I have a suggestion. And particularly with Jeff telling me you're likely to be absent, if maybe I'll focus Stuart's arrival for the November meeting. Then and we make that an in-person meeting. Whereas to Peter's point, I don't anticipate any huge amount of business on October 5th, but I would like to meet each month. So a compromise from tonight could be we do October 5 as Zoom, and we go to in-person in November and December. And we'll try to get, and then Jason Little, depending on his schedule, could be November or December. And we'll have some applications coming in, because I think our rolling application period, so to speak, what was the end date that we ended up with on that, Lori? I forget, but we decided to do that last year, sort of. Was it up to
If I
November 1st?
remember correctly, the end date, was it November 30th or December 1st? I think it was. I'll have to double check.
You said you were updating the application on the website, just maybe for the dates things. Is that what you were talking about?
Yes. Yeah. So Michelle had sent you the application forms last week for review. And then she told me that she was going to upload them. She didn't hear from you, but she figured she'd just upload them.
I
think it
apologize.
was
I missed
yesterday.
the email completely. So I got to go back and look for that.
So why don't you look them over? They should be up there now. And if you have an issue with anything in the applications, then let us know and we'll modify it. We'll take it down, modify it, and upload it fresh.
I expect it'll be simple, but should there be any policy change, we'll bring it to the next meeting. But I think probably just a couple clarifications.
Yeah, That's pretty much what she did. She just updated the dates.
Good.
And the years.
Good, okay. So what do you think? We'll go with that plan? October 5 Zoom. For sure, I'll get with Stuart and either way, try to get him to do on the 2nd.
Yeah, John,
Or
my
later-
only comment
later
is,
in the year.
my only comment on the Saginaw visit is it might be easier for him. You might be more likely to get him to attend a meeting if it's remote, right?
Maybe, I don't know, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it would be worthwhile to have him remote if that's what we need to do to get him.
Yeah, let me see what he says.
Yeah.
But everybody likes the idea of him coming, so I'll try to make that happen.
Right.
Very good. So, regardless, our meeting schedule should be the first Thursday of each month, October 5, November 2nd, December 7th, and January 4th are dates I would put in your calendars now, okay?
Yep.
Yep.
That's all I got. Any other questions, business? Want to nominate for any more positions that I can hold? Go for it.
Yes, I have one. Official spokesman at town meeting.
Oh, no, that's even worse. You-
Any second, Andy?
I'll second it.
I would
There
definitely
you
second.
go.
We'll cover that at a later date. Thank you, though. Appreciate everybody's support. I will entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:02 PM.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Jeff. Roll call to adjourn. Andy Dowd,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Andy Clark,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.